Well, hello, beautiful Akari. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to hear all your wisdom that you have to share today on a topic that's been pretty hot in our community, I feel like recently. So thank you for being here. I'd love for you to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Akary Busto. I am a 1-3 sacral generator. I am an emotional biohacker working with the nervous system and combining the knowledge of human design to really help people unwind. And it is just a really important subject for me because I do believe that once we start working on the nervous system, things really start to unwind.
Preach. Yes. And what is your human design? I'm sorry, not your human design, your astrology, your top three.
I am Aquarius, sun Aquarius, moon Aquarius, and then Taurus rising.
Ooh, my
I know.
Taurus sun loves that for you.
Well, let me tell you, I am very grateful for it because, the Aquarius, just I'm so much in my head.
Oh.
And the 1-3 profile keeps me so in. So that Taurus is kind of nice to have.
hmm And I will say, I feel like I know both sides of what you're talking about because my body is actually an Aquarius. So I feel the mix of those two sometimes too. And it's just like, it's a lot.
And it's a
Yes.
fixed sign, it's a
Oh, I'm
fixed,
all fixed. It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, all fixed. Yeah, I'm a stubborn one. Okay, so I recently met you, and we had a lot in common, nervous system regulation and human design. And I thought that was so awesome. And then you went even deeper and started talking to me about the heart math practices, which I've been hearing so much about. I've done a little bit of the heart math, heart coherence, meditation work, that kind of stuff, and I love it. I haven't devoted that much time to it yet. I know when the time comes, I'll feel that. But a lot of my clients are raving about it. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about on your background personally with how you started with the nervous system and then leading up to why you started incorporating heart math and what that is.
You know, uh, we all have a story,
Mm.
right? And the story always can be as dramatic as we want that narrative to sound, but the stress, really the stress, and so many years of carrying a lot of responsibility from being the oldest child, coming from immigrant parents, being that one person that everyone kind of relies on all the time. I didn't realize that I was carrying so much. And as I started to do my inner work, I realized that there was a lot of nervous system dysregulation in my life. I didn't realize that and I love saying this, I'm walking around with my trauma goggles on, making decisions that just were not in my favor, but just not having the awareness. And so having a high corporate career where it was just constantly moving and doing, I didn't realize how much stress I was carrying until my office. I was working international banking, and when my office closed and the silence came, then all of the aches and pains and everything started to come through, and I realized I'd been carrying a lot. And so on the search, I started looking for things to help me unwind, and there was nothing I could just really sink into that felt good. Different types of meditation, my brain just went crazy making lists. Sound baths, I hear a lot of people love them, but my brain just loves to just go, oh, and don't forget about this. And it starts thinking about the weirdest things. And so when I discovered breath work, it was an active breath work. So active guided meditation. And that's when I was able to disconnect. And, that just kind of spiraled me into my one profile line that was just like, ooh, let's find out more. Let's do more. And it is amazing how many people don't realize that the reason why breath work feels so good is because it is resetting your nervous system. So we have no awareness, no connection around it. The same thing with sound baths and sound healing. It is that nervous system regulation that's happening. And so there was no particular course or class or anything that was available. So I kind of had to piece it all together to make it all make sense for me. And, I love profile numbers. So my 1 really got me researching, and my 3 really got me experimenting. So I
Mhm.
experimented with a lot of different things, and I finally was able to go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I had never heard of HeartMath or anything like that, but I just knew that there had to be some sort of connection and the wisdom from our ancestry, right? Like the ancients, um, the lineage. And so my lineage comes from Mexico City, the surrounding areas in Mexico City, and in Mexico City, an hour north are the pyramids of Teotihuacan. And so I'd been so many times growing up, but I also went on a retreat, and that just kind of started to evolve my curiosity around the heart. And finding HeartMath, the HeartMath Institute, was the game changer. And it continues to be the game changer, not just for myself, but for my clients and for the people around me, because the strongest nervous system in the room is the one that wins.
Actually, going back to that nervous system, you said in the beginning you started noticing how dysregulated you were. Can you remember any of the signs that started to flag you that something was not right with your body?
Absolutely. It was aside from being the conditioning, right? Because this is what was normal growing up for me. And of course, I come from a Mexican background, and I always say we're so loud and proud. Uh, Raising my voice. So I felt the passion, and raising my voice was a normal, but the way my family was receiving it was that I was yelling or screaming, where I was just like, that is not yelling or screaming. You don't know what yelling or screaming is, come over to my home, right? Come and see how I was raised. That was yelling and screaming. So that was a big red flag, because then the feedback that I was receiving from them was that it was getting a little out of control, because things were just triggering me.
Mm.
And it became a deep, another one of those deep things that I had to figure out. And at the time I was working with a somatic experiencing therapist, and that really helped create some more awareness around the body, because there was no time. We're not taught how to feel or how to be in our bodies. And again, being an Aquarius, I'm in my head, not in my body. And
Mhm.
so it really helped ground me and start to go in. And I'm a sacral generator, so emotions and all of that can be a little overwhelming for me. They're very uncomfortable.
I actually resonate with that a lot because my family is indigenous Puerto Rican, and my dad was always been passionate, and he'd get aggressive, and everyone on that side of the family yelling and just loud Puerto Ricans, right? And I never realized until a few years ago that a lot of that passion was more of like a trauma response. It's not the kind of passion that's a healthy passion. So I've been able to dial myself back a lot. I would find that I'd immediately go to that overly passionate in relationships, not in like a sexy way. Like, actually, there's a lot of social media. I see like reels and memes and things talking about like the spicy Latina girlfriend and how she'll hunt you down and she'll find your phone, right? And they're trying to make it funny, but that's not funny because it's actually a really scared person and it's really unsafe in their body. But we have that history, right? We have that stigma behind it. And I've actually very recently, over the past couple of years, let go of quite a few friendships who, they would pride themselves on that certain type of passion, and yelling at me or talking to me a certain way where they just would, always default back, oh, I'm just a passion, I'm spicy or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a trauma response, and I don't deserve your trauma dumped on me. So no, thank you. And so I love that you just pointed that out, because that's not something that we actually talk about a lot in nervous system, is that passionate side of certain cultures. So I'm really glad you mentioned that because I don't think I've ever talked about that.
Yeah, but it's a stigma, right? Like,
Mhm.
either it's a stigma or it's something that we consider very normal in our
Mhm.
communities and in our families. And stepping away from that has been, for me, so empowering, because I realize that it doesn't have to be that way. And the more we evolve, and it's really interesting because I think coming from a place like Mexico, and I don't know if you're familiar with their politics right now, but they have their first female president. And it is so fascinating because we don't have role models out there of women who are strong in their vulnerability. And that is really what she is showing. And I don't know what her human design is or her profile or anything like that, but I'm very curious about it because she shows up very calm, and she addresses both the female and male entity like in such a separate way, so beautifully. And it just like warms my heart.
Mm.
And it isn't on a political scale, right? It's not like choosing sides. It's just how she's showing up that is
As a
showing,
human.
it's showing us how we can, as women, show up for ourselves, giving us
Mm.
permission, right? Giving us permission. And so it's been really empowering to witness that, especially in a time where the world seems to be going backwards. So I really appreciate that. And you're right. And I think one of the things that she talks about is really that mental health, and really working with the traumas from, our lineage, to really start calming that down and giving us an opportunity to be different,
Mm.
to give us permission to do things different. Yeah, this happened and that happened, but there's no reason why we should be stuck in that narrative.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and I feel like that is really my life and soul purpose, which is so ironic when you look at my incarnation cross, and the Sphinx is like so powerful for me to be able to come from the heart and help people shift that story that just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And it gives you so much opportunity to grow and to find that joy within. And
Hmm.
totally find that joy within, even though things are falling apart around us.
Hmm. Absolutely. And now we have so much more awareness around the nervous system and around what triggers us and trauma responses and all of that. And it's amazing to have so many different resources, and it can be a little overwhelming. But that's why I like to bring the ones that I find really useful on here, because I know people who listen to me resonate with things that work for me. And even though I've only had a little bit of experience with the heart math or heart coherence work, I think through Joe Dispenza, right? He does a lot of that. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Um, I can definitely see how it shifts things and how it's shifted in my clients some things. So I'd love for you to explain more about heart math and what that does for the nervous system.
So it's amazing because we don't, again, the science is finally catching up to the woo, right? So the heart has an electromagnetic field that goes 3 to 5 feet outside of your body. So if you think when you're in a crowd, how much of that energy, and when we're doing human design, we realize it's not personal, it's energy. And so when you realize you're standing around so many different people and you're in that energy, the brain, the number one job of the brain is to keep you safe, right? And God bless it for keeping us safe from the weirdest things that happen. But we don't really talk about the heart brain. And we don't talk about the 80-20 rule, where 80% of what you're feeling, that information goes to the brain. And the brain only sends 20% of the information back down to the body, which means that the brain is constantly getting messages, which is also why the brain goes, okay, I don't really know what's going on here because I'm getting all of these different messages from all these different organs in your body. So the heart, when you connect into the heart, the power of the heart is that you're making decisions that are really what you should be doing. If we look into the brain's going to say, well, I don't know, is it safe? Should we? And then when you connect to the heart's like, this is what's going to bring me the excitement. This is the joy. This is where I want to focus on. And so when we talk about the heart and the power of the heart, let's say you're standing and the door is behind you, and you're standing and you're watching and you're focused, and all of a sudden you get like this little ping right? Turn around. It isn't your brain that captures that. It is your heart, right? That 3 to 5 feet of electromagnetic catches something that gets you to turn around. So it's so powerful and it is underutilized. We're not taught to use our heart. We're taught to use our logical brain because it limits us. Really, that's what it is. And it is so much easier to control us by putting fear out there than to allow us to just tap into our heart and go, this is going to be okay. Like things are a little messed up right now, but I know. And the reason I know, I refer to my heart as the she who knows it all.
I like that. I'm gonna start using that. Yes. Well, that and my sacral, but they're so connected. The she who
Mhm.
knows it all. Yes.
The she.
Um, and you see, like, there's so much more information out there on the gut brain now. And I think this is just opening us up to understanding that there are so many other parts of our body that have so much more intelligence. And now there's a huge focus on the heart brain. And for anyone who's listening who finds this a little hard to understand, think about an ECG. You can literally plug things up to your chest and it sends electrical impulses out to this machine where you can measure all this information. Like that is electricity. That is proof right there that your heart has these electromagnetic currents. And I think it was Joe Dispenza that I think that did the maybe it wasn't actually, that could be a lie, a study of people like all over the world and they were studying their hearts and they were having them meditate at certain times of the day. Did you ever hear about this research?
Yeah, he did research with UC San Diego actually that aligned with him. And a few years back, what they were doing is picking random people and following them through his one of his retreats. I think it was the 7-day retreat that was done in Playa del Carmen in Mexico. And the amount of miracles, right? Because that's what we can call them, is miracles, is shift in the mindset around people who just came out of very difficult places in their lives. And even Joe Dispenza's story, right? His story is really, really interesting, how he was able to get himself walking once again. So he aligns very deeply with the HeartMath Institute. The HeartMath Institute has been studying the heart for over 25 years. And the research is there around how powerful the heart really is. And like I said, it's underutilized for so many different things. So connecting to that heart and doing these meditations, especially at a Joe Dispenza level, I think it just it speaks for itself. I mean, he gets like 400 people in one room, and his meditations are about 4 hours. Like the longest one that they do in that retreat is about 4 hours.
Wow.
I had a client go through that and she was just laughing. She was like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to, lay there for so long. And then when she got back, she was just like, it felt like 10 minutes.
Wow, that's wild.
It felt like 10 minutes. And I have another client who's actually going to be going to his retreat this coming weekend. So I'm very excited because she has a biofeedback sensor. When you come work with me, I get you a sensor. And that is how we navigate this. And I think it's really important, especially for us women, to have a way of measuring this because we don't have enough research on women and our cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
And when you start to track, you start recognizing certain patterns. One of the patterns that I notice is that the younger you are, which is it's already on the research, the younger you are, the lower your heart rate is when your resting heart rate is. As you start to get older and you haven't done any work, that's a lot higher. And I notice that in my clients, depending on their ages, that is true. And so one of the biggest things that I try to work with them is to help them lower that heart rate, like the resting heart rate, figuring out what we need to do. I'm just very curious about how unwinding their nervous system and shifting their baseline is going to help them accomplish that.
Mm.
The heart, the information that the heart gives us, like you were saying with the EKG, it can tell you whether or not there's something coming in the pipeline. It's fascinating.
It is so fascinating. It blows my mind every time I learn, or I have the app Gaia, so we'll watch a lot of like heart type of documentaries and they show us the studies and like people in different areas of the world, but doing the same meditation, their heart rates went to the same exact rate. Like it's wild how connected everything is. It's so crazy.
You know, I'm so into it that the HeartMath Institute has this project going on. It's about global coherence.
That was it. Yes, that was it.
So it's a citizen scientist kind of program. And so I totally jumped in. And so I get on there and it's awesome because you see my little dot in Long Beach, California that says Akary mind, body, soul, and it tracks my surrounding communities and what their coherence is. And because I do so much meditation here, even at home when I do breathwork circles, sometimes the little dot is bright yellow and my heart just glows with, excitement to think that we're collaborating, that we're really adding to that global coherence, that it doesn't matter how loud the negative comes in, and because it really, that's the purpose, is to dysregulate us. So it doesn't matter how loud it is, there is always hope.
I love that. I love that you get to track it on your little dot.
I'm
That's so
such I'm
rewarding.
such a nerd.
But it's so rewarding. And it
It is.
reminds you it's not just about you. Like when you can take care of yourself at your own home, that impacts everyone else, like the collective. I just love that. So, okay, so we know it has to do with meditation, but I'm sure someone listening right now is like, oh, another meditation, or I don't know if I can meditate. So bring me back to the Akari that struggled to meditate and talk to the person who's like that, who's already a little on the fence about this kind of meditation and what a heart math meditation does or looks like that's a little bit different.
So there's a couple of things. We have breath work and then we have techniques, right? And what really got me into all of this was breath work, because for the first time, I was able to disconnect my brain from my body. So it was like the best sleep ever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was very exciting. So doing all of this and then thinking to myself, there has to be more, there has to be more. I continued to do this breath work meditation and exploring so many different things, because at that point, after doing it often, it's never the same, it's always different. But I've had some really like amazing experiences around including like a past life regression. It was wild just
I'm not surprised.
where it was taking me, right? And then I started to go deeper and focusing, and the information that I was getting was like where people, my mother-in-law was here and we were doing hospice and I just needed a break because, you're caretaking. So I went and I did a breath work circle and I came back with the knowledge that her cancer was in her lungs. It was in her mouth. And so I asked her, I said, hey, do you have mercury fillings still? And she said, yes.
Wow.
And so we start thinking about, wow, all of that leaching into your body. And ironically, her cancer was a very rare thyroid cancer.
Mm.
So it was very mind blowing for me to be able to get that information, to get the root of where this was coming from. HeartMath is practical because we're not going to throw ourselves on the floor and start doing breath work when something arises. And really, that was my focus. My focus was to find something practical that I can lean into in moments of stress. When you start doing these heart math techniques, what is so like mind blowing is how your body wants that homeostasis. It's looking for alignment.
Yep.
And so I start really slow with my clients with a 2-minute, like I record meditations for them. So that we start with these 2-minute, 3-minute meditations, and we slowly build up to 5 minutes and then to 9 minutes. So we're really gradually just building. That's all we're doing, is just building on one thing to the other. so that we're slowly getting and integrating your body into asking for it. So that's the big piece, is that your body starts to request this. And so before you know it, you're doing these techniques of connecting into your heart without that conscious awareness going, okay, I need to do my technique. And so I typically ask someone to do once a day, and then I move to twice a day, and then I encourage 3 times a day. And we measure to see where we're at during those periods of the day. When is that resting heart rate the best? Not because, you know, we're going to focus on that time of the day. It's just so that it brings awareness to what it feels like to be calm in the morning. What does it feel like to find calm during the middle of your day? And what does it feel like at the end of the day? To get the body to want to ask for it naturally. And so when we're doing these 2-3 minute meditations, people start to realize that they're doing this unconsciously. And then eventually they'll notice that subtle thing. And with these techniques, what happens is that you may not notice it right away, but your family notices. Your family notices that there are certain things that you are not reacting to anymore. You're actually responding. And that's the magic, is that you're not reacting, you're responding, you're able to stay in your own lane. And we go back to that big passionate, you know, Latina thing, is there were a lot of things that would trigger me. And it would trigger me into a space of excitement. Like, yeah, let's get into this. And I don't know if to a certain degree it's my warrior self being invited, right? All right, let's do this. Let's fight. And not fight. It was just the enthusiasm of getting into it. And it's a nervous system response, right? Like, it's like, calm down. Like, we can have this conversation. You don't need to be so excited about it. So I didn't notice, but my family started to notice that there were people who loved to just, you know, hook me into these big conversations. And that no longer was happening. Like, I could just stay in my lane and be like, meh. And so those people stopped engaging me because I was no longer fun for them.
Yep.
And it's really interesting to see how people target people that they're going to get a rise out of. I don't understand what brings them so much pleasure in doing this. You know, obviously it's their own nervous system wanting to be the creators of chaos, or they're so comfortable in chaos that this is what their normal is like. And if it's not chaotic, you're boring. So yeah, it's really interesting. And at the same time, speaking of chaotic, how many of us in our past have, like you said, been so interested in relationships that had chaos because that was just our normal. And
Yeah.
it's just that nervous system. And once you start unwinding, you start finding that certain things are just no longer exciting. No longer do I want to participate in relationships that are not here to grow. It's a waste of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a trajectory of growth. And if you're not, it's okay. It doesn't have to be your journey, but you can't bring me down with you.
Yep. Yep. There's a lot of solar plexus energy that the shadow frequencies are seeking out of some sort of emotional high or low. And it's we tend to think that you would only want good emotions, but the shadow can actually be just seeking any emotion just to feel something, whether it's good or bad. So unfortunately that happens a lot with a lot of people, a lot of different reasons. And this is actually reminded me of a year and a half ago. I had that first moment of like understanding that like all the nervous system work I had been doing was working really well, because my grandmother, who's still with us, had a heart attack. And I remember getting the message, it was via text. And the old me would have gone into like, get in the car, get to the hospital, like just all this stress around the kids and figure something out. I got to get to her. And I remember this moment so clearly. I was standing in my kitchen and I put my phone back down and I looked at my husband and I said, you know, Graham just had a heart attack. I'm going to call my grandfather and ask, you know, what if there's anything that they need. And it took me a couple days before I realized I had responded instead of reacted. And it was just like a totally different energy, so much more groundedness. And it just goes to show that doing these types, using these kind of tools, it's not even just about in the moment, but it's about the compound effect. And over time, you're retraining your nervous system. Yes, it's great in the moment, but you're actually retraining yourself to respond in a completely different, more healthy, more grounded, clear kind of way.
Well, you're rewiring your brain, right? And this is something I teach is we have these neural pathways going up to our brain. So the way that I try to teach people is, do you know how to ride a bike? Right? Do you know how to ride a bike, Adriana?
I do.
Awesome. Do you remember like when you were starting to ride a bike, what that looked like?
No, I don't at all. I don't have much. I'm probably, if you want me to remember, I'm not the person to ask because I have so much trauma. I don't remember much of my childhood.
Okay, well, you know, your children are at that age where they're learning how to ride a bike.
Hmm.
So, what is it like for them to be learning something new,
Hmm. You have to
right?
build resilience.
And it's practice.
Hmm.
What that looks like for them, excuse me, is probably the same way that it looked like for you.
Hmm.
It wasn't like you got on a bike and you took off, right? So it's practice, practice, practice. So the brain thrives on repetition. So the more you practice, the brain's like, okay, this is how we do it. Okay, this is how we do it. Okay, this is how we do it. Course correcting, right? Until finally it's like autopilot. Like you don't even have to think. You just jump on a bike and you pedal and you go. There's no thinking. Same thing with learning a new instrument. You don't have to think about it because your brain is constantly recording all of this and making sure that it knows how to do it on autopilot. So our reactions to triggers is just a response on autopilot that's here to help keep us safe. And it's an autopilot thing. So, what these techniques are meant to do, they're meant to disrupt these patterns. And so, as long as you are consistent, you're going to continue to disrupt these patterns, and disrupting patterns is going to be much more familiar, much more comfortable, right? And the impossible actually can happen.
Hmm.
We think, oh, that'll never happen, but it does. It really does. I know that my relationship with the people around me has shifted, and I'm very, very, very competitive sometimes. And so having these triggered conversations, obviously with my siblings, which is where it can become much more explosive, always left me heartbroken, right? It would leave me like in a shame loop. Like, how could I get hooked into this conversation once again? And just really, I felt like defeated.
Yep.
And that's when I started looking at nonviolent communication. And that's when I started becoming even more interested in disrupting patterns. And that's where the HeartMath really comes in, is disrupting patterns. It's great you can meditate. It's great that you can do all of that. That's just like a side effect of all of this. What we're really going for is disrupting patterns. Why do we continue to do what we've always done if we know that it's not going to give us the result that we're looking for? Patterns, patterns. And they're really difficult to break, obviously, because you see the generational patterns, you see the energetic patterns, the conditioning that comes from one generation to the next. So the only thing that I am interested in is changing my lineage. I can't change anybody else. I can change my lineage. And that is what is most important for me, to know that because I am now coming from a completely different space, that my daughter reacts in the same way, that now she has tools that no one else in her life has taught her, because I do believe that all things need to be taught at home.
Yep.
that is something that she gets to take with her, to take out into the world, to take into her relationships, to take into her children. I've changed my lineage. And it makes me very proud. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction to know that the work I do, there's a ripple effect here. There's a ripple effect that is a bigger wealth than the dollar sign or the zeros in your bank account.
Always. I remember when I walked, I think this was last year, walked in and saw my kids had been sick. My oldest daughter was the most sick and she had a really bad headache. And I walked in and I saw my 5-year-old teaching her how to do tapping. And so I have a picture of her going like this and my other daughter crying, but trying to go like this. And every time I see that picture, I just cry because if I had been offered these tools, if I had even just been told it was okay that I want to cry or that it was okay to feel the way I was feeling, everything would have changed. But I understand. That's what I was here to do. Now I'm here to break that. So I had to go through that pain just like you in order to break that for the lineage. But it is something so special when you get to see it in not even just your kids, but like if you don't have kids, your niece, your nephew, your students, if you're a teacher, your neighbor's kid, like it's amazing what we can do.
It's the ripple effect of the work. And I always tell people, what would it have been like if your parents would have done 1% of the work? Like, we're not even asking for 99%, we're asking for 1%, right? What would that ripple effect look like? And they're on their own journey. And again, it's the level of awareness. And we all know, the neutrinos, we all know all of these different aspects of what gets people there. But on the flip side of that, when you start to do your own work, like I know that I've been in and out of contact with my mother all of my life. She is a very defined emotional manifesting generator, obviously in a lot of her shadow. And I have so much openness that being no contact was the only way that I could be free of all of that energy.
Yep.
And you would never think that that could evolve or shift. And in the past plus or minus 5 years of really doing this deep work, it has shifted. I can sit with her, I can hold space for her. There is a difference though, right? Now whenever she wants to dump stuff on me, I just say, I am your daughter. If you need to talk to someone about these hard things, I think you need to get a therapist.
Good for you. Good
It's
boundaries.
it's not for me to hold this for you. And
Mhm.
it is us as children teaching our parents, right? And it is us as parents doing 99% of the work to make sure that our children have a different experience. And so now here's this other challenge as we're I feel like Ra wanted us to remember who we were. Remember who you are. We are helping our children. We're creating this opportunity for them to remember who they are at a much younger age than we had that opportunity. But with that, we have new challenges coming because now we don't resonate with their challenges. We don't understand what that's like. And it's taken me a minute to take a step back, connect to my heart, and be like, wise one, like, show me the way, because I don't relate. I don't relate. This is all new territory for me. And how can I show up in a supportive space without trying to compare? Wow, at your age, it's what we heard all of our own lives, right? Like, when I was your age, this is what I was
Yeah.
doing.
Yep.
But what we don't realize is that evolution is happening constantly.
Mhm.
And what was true then is no longer true now. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind because we are shifting and changing the world with what we're teaching.
Mhm.
And no
Right.
one's talking about what is that going to look like for the generations that are coming up. Nobody's talking about how we need to take a step back and realize that it's okay that it is different. It is okay that the journey is no longer what it looked like 10 years ago. And it's a different landscape. It's a completely different landscape. Just, how are they going to survive? All of that is shifting, right? It's so expensive out in the world. How are they going to be able to navigate? And I just look at the generations on how much they're into the collective, how much everything that was important for us as far as safety and security. And I guess, coming from immigrant parents, like thinking like security and safety was the big thing, and get a career so you can feed yourself. And
Yep.
now they're actually digging deep into passion projects. I know that I ran to get a degree because I needed to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing more of this passion project, which is a completely new space for me, right? And at the same time, what a great adventure to live vicariously through and be curious about.
I feel that way too.
Wonder what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And my daughter is getting ready to go on a 2-week certification course in South Africa. She loves working with the wild animals.
Oh,
Never would I have ever thought that that was going to be something even remotely available for her, or that she would be interested in. So talk about really shifting the lineage and changing how it all shows up.
hmm.
So it's fun. It can
It
be.
is fun. Yeah, it is fun. That seems to be the overarching theme of this conversation is just that it's not just about you. It's really not. So like if you are finding that your motivation is just yourself and it's not enough, like you're not getting to the practice or whatever it is keeping you away, like what if you were to look at your kids and see if they were your motivation or your students or something along those lines? Because that's really what it is. That's what's happening. We're here to break these ancestral patterns and create a new paradigm.
And I think that one of my favorite ways of looking at it is that we are the dreams of our ancestors.
We are.
And when I look at, my grandmothers, and I look at their mothers, and I look at, I was a history major, which I think was the best thing that I could have ever done. Considering I just needed a job, right? uh, what I see is how hard it was for our
Mhm.
mothers, how hard it was for our grandmothers, how much harder it was for our great grandmothers. And yet here we are. Here we are. Here we stand.
Yeah.
And it was all, and knowing that you have your grandmother, how lucky to be able to get the messages and the love and all of the stuff, because you get the stories. And I'm sure she looks at you and she can't relate, right? She can't relate, but is in awe of how far you've come.
Yep.
And that is her lineage. She gets to witness that. And I think that is so special. And it's not a burden, but it is an opportunity for us to continue to strive to find what our joy is, because it is, my joy is not the same as theirs, and they don't want it to be.
Hmm.
They've just created space for us to really step into our power.
Feel like that's a huge theme. I mean, I literally have the channel of struggle, so I am forever
Oh,
striving to figure it out and find the next best way for me at least, or I guess for everyone, really for the collective. If someone wants to learn more about heart math and connect with you, where can they do that?
I love Instagram. That's my favorite space. I find that as much as I love connecting with people, it is not my forte to be like on these groups or creating stuff. It's just, it takes a lot of energy for that. So
Mhm.
Instagram is really the best place. If people want to go to my website and, play there too, that's amazing. Um, One of the things that always fascinates me about the work that we do is people think that they're going to get an astrology reading or a human design reading, and that's going to be a life changer. And it's not. That's just dipping your toes, and it's the
Yeah.
beginning of things. So I do not teach heart math outside of my coaching practice because I am result driven, right? That's really my generator self. I like to see results. I like to walk people through the process. I am not a one to many people. I really love the one-on-one because it allows us to develop a relationship. And what I find is that I stay friends with all of my coaching clients. It just becomes a really strong bond because we're working through so much, and the
Mm-hmm.
nervous system needs to be handled gently and lovingly. So it is at your pace. But the Heart Math Institute is like they'll have virtual retreats that you can
Oh,
attend.
cool.
The only thing that happens, and I think it's just in human nature, that if you don't have accountability, I have so many people, and this is where I got discouraged about just giving people sensors.
Yes.
So many people have a sensor and it's just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
There's this belief that if it's not hard, then it's not working, right? And the heart math is actually quite easy. And so you need someone to hold you accountable and walk you through it.
Yeah, as with most things. I mean, that's where coaches and mentors make a living because it is so hard to stay focused just on your own.
Yeah.
That's definitely true for me.
Yes. Yes. I actually love accountability because at the other
Mhm.
side of accountability is where the magic happens. It's where I want to
Mhm.
be and I can't get there by myself. And
Yep.
that's the beautiful part of it is you want a baseline shift, you want to shift really fast, you got to invest in yourself.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. All of your links will be in the show notes, so anything that they want, they can find right there. I appreciate you sharing all of your beautiful wisdom today. I appreciate the theme of this conversation too, with the ripple effect. That's something I think about often. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure.